Hello and welcome back to the Be More Connected Summit. And today our guest is Karlene Graham Perry, and she's the founder and executive director of NUEVOLVE, where she shares how we can actively engage in the process of manifestation. And she also supports women in meeting their full potential and being able to serve the world in a way where they're accessing their own personal rhythm and simultaneously honoring the unknown in a wholehearted way. So Karlene, thank you so much for serving on the summit today. I'm so excited for our conversation and to dive deeper into the work that you're doing in the world. And so first, I'd love to open up by asking and learning more about your journey of healing and what's gotten you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be chatting with you. My journey to this point, how have I gotten here? I think, it's such a layered question, like so many points along the way. But I think the first moment where I made a conscious decision that I can recall to invest real energy into my personal development was around the time when Oprah's Super Soul Sunday series had started. And she had Brene Brown on, and I remember getting Daring Greatly. I didn't even hear the TED Talk. Like, I heard about it through Oprah. Got the book and was like, oh my goodness, I want to do more with my life. I want to do greatly. And I'd already always been kind of an overachiever academically, but felt compelled to expand. I don't want to say achieve, but thrive in other areas of my life. And academically was moving in a direction that didn't feel aligned. And so was looking for who I was and all of that. So I think what has been born from that is a desire to help other women in ways that I wish I had been helped, in finding clarity around desire, but also the actions that you can take toward it. And I kind of stumbled into a lot of these things, but want to offer a clearer path for those who are looking to take deliberate action toward aligning their purpose with the way that they live their lives. And that's showing up, and not just in career, but in the different areas of your life. So it's a bit of my journey and how I got here.
Beautiful. And I love how you shared about Super Soul, because that was actually really supportive for me when I was entering my own personal development and wellness journey as well, and still active listener of those Super Soul conversations.
Yeah, for sure.
And so then I'd love to ask, what are the key practices that you teach, offer, and share?
Yeah, I would say the key practices center around observation first, allowing ourselves to take inventory of what's going on without judgment. I liken our lives to a garden, and our job being as gardeners to prune and to plant, but also to enjoy. And I don't feel like that it's appropriate to just raise a garden to the ground and start over unless, all you're growing is weeds, but oftentimes that's not true. There's usually something that's flourishing in our lives, even when it feels really dark. And it can be easy to get caught up on seeing what we don't want. Or sometimes we can be blind to what should change in order to create space for more of what we want. So I call that practice Manifestaction. And for me, it centers around, as I said, observation. But really first, I think the easiest place to start is with identifying what you think you want, and then observing what you already have in service of that. And then looking at what you want to prune, what you need to release to create space for that. Also looking at what you need to fill the gaps. And then how do you get started? And then what do you do to sustain those practices that will support the realization of what you want? So it's pretty similar to what you would do in a garden. You would look at it and be like, oh, I want to plant some roses. And okay, let me look at the garden and see, does my soil have the right composition for this? Do I have what I need to do this? And also, what do I already have? And then saying, well, where am I going to put it? Where am I going to put these roses? And then identifying what needs to be cleared out to create space for that rose bush, and then nurturing it. What does that require of you? And identifying what maybe you need that you don't have. So that process really is something that I do on my own through a worksheet that I've developed. And I find like every morning when I'm like, oh, I'm going to set my intentions for the day and think about what it will require for this to come to fruition, or even if it's like a longer term goal, I find that to be really aligning. Most of my practices center around writing, because I find that it slows my thoughts down enough to actually identify, to bring my subconscious to my conscious. And then I can see if my subconscious is saying what I want it to say. So I can find like, oh, I didn't realize I had a negative thought pattern, but as I'm writing it, because there's a part of me that engages with analyzing what I'm writing and can say, well, do I maybe that is what I believe subconsciously, but is that what I want to believe?
Sure.
And so taking that opportunity to rewrite that. So that's how I move through those phases in my kind of morning journaling practice. I also do a lot of reading. What other practices? Physical activity for me is super important. Something that I can forget how important it is until I do it. And I'm like, wow, that brings so much. Even if it's just a walk, can bring so much refreshment and clarity. So yeah, I think those are, I mean, I don't want to get into like I drink this much water every day, but like there's some practices in terms of generally trying to stay well
Absolutely.
physically that I find enable me to invest the energy required to maintain my emotional and mental wellness as well.
And I was loving the metaphor that you were sharing towards the beginning of this piece about treating your own process of growth as you would treat a garden, and having that holistic perspective around not just saying, oh, we need to raise everything and start over, but really being gentle with ourselves and being thoughtful about the fact that there are absolutely things that are flourishing, and how do we continue to grow and expand upon those. And
yeah.
Oh, and did you have another piece to share on that?
Oh, I was just going to say, and sometimes that's easier said than done, but one of the quotes that comes to my mind often that I'm sure I read on like a tea bag somewhere was, nature doesn't rush and yet everything is accomplished. And so sometimes like reminding myself that I am also nature. I am a daughter of Mother Nature. Like I am not separate from nature. So I don't have to rush as much as our made up urgency wants to tell us to.
Absolutely. And in this culture that is so encouraging of stress and rushing and cultivating these practices of productivity that kind of pull us from those more natural rhythms, how do you prioritize your own self-care and pleasure while you're investing in your business and serving the world?
Yeah. One of the things I've been interested in lately is looking at lunar cycles. I should rewind and say, being a full-time entrepreneur, it can be really hard to find balance at times for me. Also because I really love what I do, and what I do includes things that I otherwise used to do for hobbies. So like in hosting international retreats, I get to travel, I get to go to new places, but oftentimes if I'm not careful, like I'll be like, oh, I went to another place, but did I take a rest? Did I vacation?
Yes.
That's not the same, which is such a privileged problem to have, but also to answer to the heart of the question of how do I make time for rest? I have to remind myself that while I love my work, it is still work, and that I have to replenish. And so something that I've been doing, because entrepreneurship takes up so much of my time, I think about the lunar cycles in the context of how my team and I run campaigns or think about launches.
Mm.
So as the new moon season is on us, we'll think about our intentions and look at how to realize those intentions, or to allow those intentions to emerge. So there's about a 2-week period between the new moon and the full moon where we're allowing those intentions to emerge. And then something that I used to and still sometimes forget about, but is like, well, what happens after you get the thing? There's usually some follow-up that you have to do afterward.
Yeah.
And that's something that I previously not remembered to schedule time for, because it'd be like, oh, I have this meeting with this person. Great, that's on my calendar. Okay, the meeting comes to fruition, but from that meeting, there are action items. There's things to do to follow up. So making sure that you have the buffer to, finish whatever tasks arise as a result of the realization of the thing that you wanted, or that you worked toward. So that helps me include some more spaciousness, while still maintaining a rhythm and thinking about it in the context of a team.
Mm-hmm.
In my personal life, I try to be protective of my rest. Something I've been thinking about is my rest as sacred as my work, because I feel that they're connected. I was also raised in a household that observed Seventh-day Sabbath. So like from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, that I had that demonstrated to me as a child as being sacred time for there to not be work. And it didn't matter if you had exams. It didn't matter if you had a high profile task to do at work. You got it done before and you resumed after. And I appreciate having that as a model or as an example for being protective of rest. And I also retain some of that, maybe not in exactly the same way as how I was brought up, but retain that and try to be protective of my mornings. I feel like the way I start my day says a lot. So my morning routine, speaking back to practices there, my morning routine really helps me to engage with my rest. Another thing that I do is I'll like randomly find a young adult novel to read, science fiction, fantasy, something that's just like not work related, not personal development, not self-help, nothing related to that. That's a really easy read and just read before going to bed. So yeah, those are some of the things I do.
Beautiful.
I'm hoping to do more travel for leisure again.
Yes. And can you share a bit more about the international retreats that you mentioned and the format for them and how you're incorporating a lot of the themes and the wisdom that you share around manifestation at those events?
Yeah, sure. It's so interesting because my background is in project management, which I feel like always had me looking for what's the most efficient thing. And so for a long time I resisted in-person events because obviously it's not as scalable as like an e-course. But there was such a pull on my heart to be, even just for me, in physical space, to be more connected, to be in physical space with other women. I was really craving sisterhood. I have all brothers and I love my brothers, and I'm happy that I can call them friends as well, but they are not sisters. And so I was really really craving some sisterhood and set some intentions around developing that and deepening the relationships that I already had. And out of that intention was born a collaboration with a friend of mine, Danielle Lyles Barton. We did our first retreat together called Sow the Seeds in Chicago, and then we took it to Bali the following year. And she's hosting an amazing experience in Arizona in September. And in January, NUEVOLVE went to Peru, and we'll be going to, can I say it? When will you, I was like, when will this air?
Official announcement?
Yeah, I mean, why not? We'll be going to Egypt, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're really excited about it. At least that's, as of when we're recording this video, you know,
Yeah.
it hasn't been officially announced, so who knows what could change, but feeling pretty confident about that. So all of that to say, I think a lot about what is the difference? What is something that we can only get in person that we cannot get online? And how can we lean into those things when we're in person, and then also extend that sentiment online? So the retreats are accompanied by an online mastermind to kind of help us with maintaining or holding us accountable to the intentions that we set in that retreat setting. So we actually go through more or less what that metaphor that I described to you in the practice that I maintain for myself, which we call Manifestaction, which is the practice of gardening your life, and go through the phases of identifying what is that passion, what are you preserving in your garden, what needs pruning, what do you need to prepare, and when you think about what to plant, how are you getting started? What immediate action items can you take? And then the last phase is produce, which identifies the practices that we need to maintain to realize the passions that we want to have become prolific, what we want to manifest in our lives. And so we do that in workshop, small group settings. I think it's really important to me that when we're talking about what you should do for your life, that you're the expert on your life. I really only want to offer a space where people feel like they can freely dream and then feel supported in the aligned action to whatever they want to manifest. So I find that a lot of it ends up being conversations led by the attendees, and we do have some like subject matter experts that come in and talk on a few different areas of life that generally feels aligned for the attendees, but it might just you know, depending on which area of life you're focusing on. So, and then we also go on an excursion, because why go all the way to Egypt or Peru and not see Egypt or Peru?
Wow.
Right, because I could you know, anywhere. So if we're going to be there, then wanting to allow that kind of environmental new environment to encourage us to think differently as well. So I find being in different cultures can sometimes raise to the surface like, oh, they don't do that thing that we do in America here. What else do I do that I have been just grandfathered into?
Sure.
And how can I choose? How can I choose my life for myself? So again, coming back to taking inventory before you even feel compelled to change something, just really asking a good question. My friend Ro from Brown Kids and now More Honestly on Instagram, she asks not if she needs this thing or this whatever, but she asks, is this worthy of the journey that I'm on?
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, that reframe is so helpful to just to take stock of where you are and just ask, like, is this custom worthy of the journey that I'm on? Is this physical item worthy of the journey that I'm on? And if not, maybe what should take its place, if anything. So is there anything else about the retreats? I'm just really proud. I think the thing I'm most proud of is the thing I can't take any credit for, or I can take very little credit for, which is the group of women that we have consistently participating. I gain so much from being in the room, aside from what me and my team give, just the vulnerability and the intention toward change and toward supporting each other. And the, you know, it's easy to say, be more free or just claim freedom. But particularly for women and women of color and Black women especially, there are a lot of very real obstacles to
Absolutely.
claiming freedom, and also a lot of invisible obstacles, like the societal pressures to be a certain way. Sometimes the most challenging and audacious act is to truly allow your dream to take shape.
Mm.
And I'm just so excited when I see people own their dream. And then, like, we came right back from the retreat, and I think it was 2 weeks afterward, I was doing check-in calls with some of the women, and the changes that had already happened. I'm like, wow, okay, you guys,
This
I
is
know
quick.
that's what I asked you to do, but like, no hesitate. Great. Glad you're going for it. Whatever you said. One person was like,
Incredible.
I'm moving to the Bahamas and then I'm going to Bali. And another one was like, I sold all my living room furniture and replaced it with beanbags because that's what me and my kids do. And I broke up with this partner, and I like was like, oh,
Yeah.
all right, okay. And you're
It's all
great.
happening.
So just really, and that is such a mirror back to me, to be inspired to maintain my personal journey of self-liberation, and seeing people take that into how they operate with others is also really, it's fuel. It's the reason why I do it. So that's the part I can't take credit for that, but that's my favorite thing, is all the stories that come out of it and all the change.
And how incredibly inspiring and empowering that is to see the transformation evolving so quickly, just when that container is created for,
Yeah.
for sisterhood and vulnerability and dreaming freely, as you described. And I'd love if you could share a bit more about how being engaged in those kinds of spaces and opportunities has supported your own personal growth and your own journey towards self-liberation.
Oh, wow. There's like so much I'm sure I could say here. Well, I mean, from a very young age, I thought I wanted to be a doctor from a very young age. But when people asked me why, I said it was because I wanted to help people, something along the lines of help people become healthy. And I thought that meant in a physical sense. And, you know, along the way, I became a little disillusioned with the traditional medical route, but also just like don't like being in hospitals.
Yeah.
So I was like,
It's not gonna work.
that'd be challenging. Like, I could push through for med school, but do I really want to?
Right.
But in my vision, I always, even as a child, always envisioned myself like running a practice. Somehow entrepreneurship was always what I felt I wanted.
Yeah.
So in a real literal way, being an entrepreneur, running New Evolve has really helped me feel freedom with my career. So, and that has translated to some location independence. Like right now I'm in Florida. I will be relocating soon to, well, I say relocating, but I'm even like, what is home? But I'll be spending a lot more time in Mexico, or even just thinking about location independence and freedom in that sense, freedom to move around a little bit more. Also still feeling like Baltimore is a home to me. It's the home of my business. That's where all my team is. And I don't know, Baltimore definitely has some strong strings still tethered to my heart.
I understand.
So how hosting, or not even just hosting, but these events have impacted me in a very tangible way has been in the life it's allowed me to live. But then I'd also say vulnerability begets vulnerability. And as I soften, I'm able to encourage others around me to soften, and then they encourage me to soften, and then we encourage others to soften, and then it encouraged me to soften. So I can see how I've really leaned more into love in a way that I'm trying to even find language for, because love in a I don't want to say grander but wider sense than familial love or love that only requires intimacy. Like I've learned to love strangers quickly, like with no requirement, or maybe I should say I am learning, because many of these women just make it easy. But yeah, that openness has been it's like I'm obsessed with this garden analogy, forgive me, but it's
I love
like
it. No, it's
it's
good.
like tilling the soil. It's like you're loosening the ground to be
Yeah.
better able to receive the seeds that you want to sow. And doing this work, being in those rooms has definitely supported my growth in that way. And then also, like, I mean, I don't know. No, I do know that I didn't envision going to Bali or Peru or Egypt for work as clearly. It's almost like I remember saying it, but it's one of those things that you don't I didn't know how to like internalize. I didn't know how to fully visualize it. And then it was like, oh, I'm on my way to Bali. I just bought a ticket for an assistant. I think
This
I'm a
is
business
happening,
owner. And I
right?
think my business takes people to other countries. So that's been really freeing too, to be able to see some of these places that yeah, I wouldn't have been able to really dream of. So that's been amazing.
That's so amazing.
Yeah. And I think on the lines of in the work that I'm doing and helping people to design their lives, the evidence that I have that gives me confidence is that I can look back and see how I designed mine. I can see that, like, I can draw lines back to specific intentions and specific aligned actions that didn't control, which is the other reason why I love the garden analogy, right? Like, you plant a seed and you don't control so much of the process, but if you don't participate in the process, then you may or may not get the plant that you hoped for.
Right.
But there's just been so much where I felt a nudge and I responded, and I got more than I bargained for. So, but that was through participation. And so that's where I get excited in seeing what will be for these ladies. Like, I just had a conversation with someone who came to our first retreat in Chicago, and that was maybe 3 years ago now, 2 or 3 years ago, and was saying that she had fainted for the first time before coming to our, like, I think she had come to one day and was like really stressed at work, and then fainted, and then was like, okay, something has to change. And as a result of that experience, the fainting and the listening and the acting, she ended up quitting that job and now working successfully freelancing in her project management world. And she's like, and I owe it all to you. And I'm like, not all. Not all.
She
I
still
mean,
took that big leap.
right. Yeah. I'll take whatever credit is
But the
due me.
support is so
Yeah.
foundational to
So
feeling ready.
seeing that kind of radiate out is emotionally liberating. And again, it's just fuel to keep doing it. 'Cause if I'm honest, entrepreneurship is not always fun and games, and
Yeah.
it's work. And there are parts of it that I don't love, but I also wouldn't trade it. So when you see the reward being lives changed, and how, like, the work that she's doing is impacting other people and helping them be more free, that is all makes my heart smile.
Yes. And I love the way that through this work, you're able to see that continual ripple effect. And even how you talked about your own internal process, like as you soften, it encourages other people to soften, and then they can share that with their community and their connections as well. And that's truly what it's all about.
Yeah, I can point back to specifically with the retreats that moment. I like I set an intention to develop more stronger sister friends, like just deeper relationships with other women, and moved to Baltimore and had an acquaintance tell me that I should meet up with another acquaintance of theirs who was passing through. And the introvert of me was like, do I have to? But okay, like, we'll see what happens. And then it was from that meeting, and that was just a random coffee shop meetup with Danielle, who I ended up hosting that first retreat with.
Right.
But we often reflect back and say, like, in that conversation, you could see, like, we don't know who opened up first, but it was just like, okay, I cracked the window open. Oh, she responded. She's okay. And then by the end of it, we're like, oh, and God is love with a capital L, like just like boo-hooing over each other and finding out so much in common.
Incredible.
And that had not been my pattern. So the intention being set and the action taken in alignment with that intention really birthed the sisterhood, which birthed an event to create space for sisterhood, which, you know, the rest is kind of history. Now we're both doing retreats. So yeah.
Incredible. And in addition to the retreat, I'd love to hear about the mastermind that you spoke of earlier that kind of continues beyond that in-person experience.
Yeah, you know, my intentions with the mastermind is just to kind of acknowledge that retreats are beautiful, but they take you out of, or not but, they take you out of your usual environment with intention, and that's important and it's valuable. But then you have to go back to your normal environment. And there are realities around what your normal environment might have that the retreat environment did not. So as we take people out of their normal environments into 5-star resorts, you know, you don't have, most of us don't have people I can call and be like, I forgot a toothbrush. Can someone bring it down? Most of us don't have that. And we go back to maybe what we, for some of us, we're trying to escape. And it's not so much that I want people to make their homes a retreat, because I think they're different, but what can we take that we want to sustain, and how can we take deliberate action when we have more friction? So I feel like it's almost like, if you're in a retreat environment, we're removing some of the friction to making change or to having certain epiphanies. Not only are we removing some of the friction, we're intentionally creating flow through different emotional experiences, through different conversations, and it's very architected. But then when you go home, you have to deal with, oh, my kid got sick and my flat tire, or, you know, whatever. We don't have concierge to call up. And yeah, looking at how we can diligently just continue to take steps, continue to take action in alignment with the manifestation or the things that we want to manifest. So again, coming back to that garden analogy, you can plant the seed, but then you don't, like, gardening is a practice. You have to keep tending to your garden.
Right.
And I have I've learned that from personal experience, where, like, don't plant a garden and then go away for a month. That's not gonna work.
Sure.
But yeah, in your own life, when you plant, you might plant that seed in Egypt or Peru or wherever. And then how do you protect your plant? How do you give it what it needs to thrive when you kind of move from being like in a greenhouse or an incubator out into the elements? And that brings what it brings. So you don't have the controlled temperature, you don't have the, you know, the birds and the rabbits and the weeds and the whatever are introduced to your garden. And how do we maintain momentum? So I mean, I think the main purpose of the mastermind is to provide continued accountability, and also to test the intentions that we set in the real world. Sometimes we set intentions that we think we want, and then it's like, oh, okay, now that I see what it requires, like, I thought I wanted to go to med school, and then I was like, but I don't like hospitals. Like, that's not gonna work. Okay, time to pivot. and really creating space for that. And then just having a community of people that, like, when it's hard, can encourage you to rest or to push through, or whatever you feel that you need, whatever support you request. Have a space that you can go to and feel safe with. And then it's accompanied by some curriculum on my end. But again, like with the retreats, for me, I mean, I love the curriculum, I'm proud of it, but the magic sauce is with the people. It's really just, like you said earlier, creating the container, which, you know, takes work and is research based because I'm a nerd. But, you know, it really comes down to how people choose to participate.
That's so incredibly true. And I'd love to hear more too from you about that process of researching and learning, and how that informs the work that you're doing with the retreats, but also just more broadly with New Evolve.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I'm happy to nerd out. A book I'm reading now on the recommendation of my friend, again, Ro. She's a diversity, equity, and inclusion facilitator. So she is my go-to for a lot of things, especially relating to our retreats.
Beautiful.
But she recommended a book called Why We Gather. I think that's what it's called. And it really just speaks to adding more purpose and intention to our gatherings, whether that's a birthday party. And I'm still in the process of reading that, but that has been really helpful already. And just thinking about, like, how you design a space really impacts the way that people use it. So you may have experienced, like, being in a room with being in maybe at a concert that had, like, general admission, but, like, this happened at Creative Alliance last time I was there. They have these stands in the back, and then they have the open floor. Everyone goes to sit on the stands, and then as people are arriving, they're trickling in, but no one wants to stand up on the stage because, you know, then they're like, am I in the way? Like, I'm up too close. And of course, when the place is full, it's fine. But if it's not, people don't know what to do, and they pull toward the edges. And I just watched this so talented musician really struggle to capture the crowd because they were just far away. So as they're physically far away, they're also kind of emotionally far away. And, like, people are like, can I want to cheer. Like, when the artist is up there and they're like, they feed off of the vibe of the crowd.
100%. Yeah.
But the crowd wasn't really equipped to give it to her. And that could be, like, the lights being up too high, or the music not being loud enough, or again with the space. So really thinking about the emotional trajectory that you want to take people on. Then there's also, I can't remember the name of the book right now. I want to say it's like the Facilitator's Guidebook. There's lots of exercises that you can take people through when you want to think about, like, how to create bonds with small groups, or how to just, like, you can learn to read a room, and I'm still learning. But, like, is the energy stale? Do people need to get up and move? Are people retreating into their shells? What can we do to interrupt certain patterns? Are people talking to each other? So in that sense, really, I think as an introvert who's gone to so many happy hours where I end up not talking to anyone other than the people I know, how do you really support connection? Which, again, if you're coming all the way from your home to another country with this group of people where you could just do a solo trip if you want, you're coming to connect. So I feel like it's my job to facilitate connection. What else? So New Evolve, the name means, like, it's a reflection on the idea that we can evolve in love at any moment. Like, every moment is a new opportunity to evolve in love. And so I end up reading a lot about love, whether that's All About Love by Bell Hooks, or I have an obsession with Rumi poetry, or Cleo Wade.
Oh, I love Rumi as well.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know what this means, but it means what I feel.
It just resonates so deeply.
Right. Yeah. trying to think what else. So yeah, I read a lot about love, and that's kind of just personal because love is a guiding principle for me. Um, and then a lot of personal development books,
Yeah.
behavior change, habit development, Atomic Habits by James Clear, or Essentialism. Can't remember the author of Essentialism right now, but really just thinking about how we use our lives, what we do with our time, and as much as possible, how we can do more of what we want with our time and with our lives. And, you know, again, as Black women, that's not always, we don't have maybe the same conditions as others might. And that's a fact worth acknowledging. And asking ourselves, well, with what I have, how can I have more freedom in my life? How can I, even coming back to the audacity of dreaming, what liberation looks like for you, and then identifying what action items to take and how do you sustain those. So those are the things that, you know, we try to find real world ways to implement in like the mastermind and in the retreat.
Fantastic. And I'm glad for our listeners to be able to hear just of some of those authors, as well as people to seek guidance and inspiration from. So thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you so much for sharing that piece. And we're almost drawing to the end of our time here. And I love to ask each of the guests what being more connected means to you.
My dad asked me the other day, and it was such a like random and interesting question. He asked me like what I think God. I think he asked me, what do I think God looks like?
Dad with the deep questions.
Yeah, often with the deep questions, and it'll be like out of the blue. It'll be like washing a dish and be like, so tell me. Like, what? Like a croissant. What are we doing? But yeah, I love it. And the thought that I had kind of been toying with was this idea that, well, I really like starting with just that God is love, and thinking of love in the context of being like connective tissue between us, and it creates opportunities for reciprocating productive energy, and that to be connected is to love, and that doesn't have to be, again, with someone that I know intimately. I think about love as being to be a catalyst for someone else's growth, or for mine. So to be a catalyst for growth. And I really appreciate, the nerd in me really appreciates the word catalyst, because a catalyst in a chemical reaction is not consumed in the process. It lends to the reaction happening faster or more efficiently, but it maintains its wholeness. And which is not how other elements of like a chemical reaction works. Usually you put two things together and then you get your byproducts, and they're never the same again. Often and irreversibly so, but like I can contribute to your growth and not be used up. Right. So how can I do more of that? So for me, that's love, to be connected to one another, to understand that, I mean, we have an affirmation series, and one of them is something along, I'm going to misquote myself, something along the lines of that nature holds space for many gardens and we bloom together. So this idea that it's not competition, we're all nature, we're all children of nature. And we can all thrive, we can all bloom. And how can I contribute to the success of your garden, or, you know, whatever it is that you're attempting to grow. And that's an opportunity for us to be connected.
Oh, I just love that piece about love as connective tissue and how
Yeah, I
that
don't
contributes
know.
to our own, like, more reciprocal energy exchange to allow us all to grow.
Yeah, I couldn't, I was like, love is, God is,
Yeah, I
he's
felt
like,
it
what are
though.
you? But yeah, just, and Rumi will say things like,
Mm,
circling back to Rumi, you are not a drop of the ocean. You are the ocean contained in a drop, in a single drop, something like that, much more poetically. But so this idea that we are individual and we are one,
yes.
um, can sound really trivial, but I don't know, just kind of strikes me as very resonant in that, like, even thinking about like literally what we are made up of, that we are nature. We are all like literally come from the same elements, the same source. Um,
Yes.
and while there are individual aspects, it's almost sides to the same thing, or like magnets, that we love it. Connectedness and love is an opportunity to be magnetized toward each other rather than to repel each other. And how much
Mhm.
more powerful is the ocean when all of the its drops are moving as a unit, rather than, like, can you imagine, like, visualizing the entire ocean as individual drops? It
That's
doesn't
like
seem very,
inconceivable.
yeah. And to what end? Like, creatures could not survive in it.
It's
Nothing.
unsustainable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's entirely. So that is what it means to be connected. And I also just love that be more is in the name.
Yes.
Love Baltimore, connected to Baltimore.
I'd love if you could share a bit of information with us about the free gift that you're offering for subscribers for the summit.
Oh yeah. So we have a community called the Fierce Family, which, in the spirit of being connected, the family that a family you can choose. And the intention of that space is just a community where women can find themselves held in loving accountability to the actions that manifest freedom in their lives, whatever that looks like for you. And it's just a place where you can share and receive support as you know, extend consent for how you want to be held in accountability.
Mm.
So we are growing that community and always adding new resources in there. So it's like, which gift do I offer? But also the worksheet that I mentioned that I go through many mornings, sometimes on the worksheet, because I have it memorized. But that process of really thinking through how I want to take something from, you know, the seed of an idea into being a fully realized, manifested part of my life is also something that's available. It's called our Manifestaction Plan,
Mm.
which is, the acronym is MAP. So if you're looking for a map or a tool to create a map, we have that in there as well for you all.
Fantastic. And
Yeah.
also would love if you have any upcoming events or anything else that you'd be excited to share about your business with our audience.
Yes. I'm not sure exactly when you're releasing this, but it doesn't matter, because very soon we are going to be opening the application process for our upcoming retreat in Egypt.
Yes, so
So that will,
exciting.
yes, I'm really excited about it. There's so many details that are unfold. Um,
Yes.
the Virgo project manager optimizer in me, I mean, really loved Peru
Yeah,
and feel like that's a irreplaceable memory. But throughout that, I'm like, oh, we could do this differently, or we could tweak this, or what if we had that? And
for sure.
you know, every year provides an opportunity to expand. So really excited about Egypt. That would be January 17 to 22,
Mhm.
2021, which sounds far away. But if you are interested in payment plans, then the earlier, the better, because
Yeah,
we split up the payments according to the amount of months remaining. So the payment plan that we'll offer when we launch during our pre-sale is not what would be available, you know, 5 months down the line. What else? I mean, I would just say keep your ears peeled if you're interested in the type of stuff that we're doing. Planning to bring some stuff back to Baltimore this year, 2020, and we may also do something a little closer to home, maybe in the Caribbean somewhere this summer over a weekend. So, because I know everyone can't take like a week off to go to Egypt, but maybe can take a long weekend to go to, I don't know, Barbados or Playa del Carmen or something.
Right.
So, yes, those are some of the
Wow.
things that we're cooking up.
Well, super exciting updates. And I'm so excited to stay connected with New Evolve and being able to experience the tools and resources that you're sharing with your community, as they are so transformational, and appreciate you sharing everything that you shared today that's centered in free dreaming and self-liberation and allowing us to connect deeper into our own goals and desires and giving ourselves permission to live more in that way. And so I know that our audience is going to so benefit from this conversation.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you thought of me and invited me to join this summit. I can't wait to see the other conversations that you have along the way. Oh, I should mention how you find what we're offering. I mean, I'm sure you're probably going to include links, but New Evolve is spelled NUEVOLVE. So NU and Evolve. And we're on Instagram and .com and whatever. But if you want to join the Fierce family, then you can just go to family.newevolve.com. And that's where you'll find us. And people who are in the family find out things first, you know. We do like to find ways to reward action, like I think life does.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much, Karlene, and thank you so much for tuning in. We'll hope you join us for our next interview for the Be More Connected Summit. Bye, everyone.